So, on Mythic Spoiler, we're starting with white. And don't have any other order, really, that I'm going with. So, I'll just start at the top, go down the bottom, move on to the next color, then to multicolor, and then artifacts. Alright, so first one is Paragon. For 4 mana, 2 white sources, you get a 3/4 flyer. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land from your graveyard or cast a permanent spell with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard. If you do, it gains when this permanent is put into the graveyard from the battlefield. Exile it and you gain 2 life. Okay. So 3/4 flyer 4 is pretty good curve. Playing lands from the graveyard doesn't. First card I'm seeing in the set, but probably isn't going to do much for white. However, being able to play a permanent spell with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard every turn, every one of your turns, is pretty freaking awesome. Yeah, that's really good. I'd say this is an A. Yeah, A-, I would say. Pretty good. Alright, so there's a whole bunch of these sagas. Well, there's one for each color, I think. And what I think is new about these sagas is the read ahead. Which means basically you get to play the saga and pick which step you start on. But if you pick anything other than one, you don't get to utilize that first step at all. So if you pick 3, you'd miss out on 1 and 2. This one is 5 mana. First one is Scry 4. Then you may reveal the top card of your library. If a planeswalker card is revealed this way, put it into your hand. It's definitely a constructed thing, not limited. That will never happen in limited. It'll be like 1 in a million. You may put, number 2 is you may put a planeswalker card with mana value 6 or less from your hand onto the battlefield. That could be useful. Just, it's like 1 in 10,000 in limited. Third is you may activate the loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control twice this turn rather than only once. That's pretty sweet. So this is not really a limited card because if you get more than one planeswalker in a limited pool, then you're super lucky to begin with. And even with only 2 in your deck, you might not want this card because it's still, chances are still pretty small that you'll have a planeswalker on top or a planeswalker in hand or on the board when you draw this. Not saying it's impossible, but it seems unlikely. So this is basically an F for limited. Next one, Valiant Veteran. 1 in a white for 2/2 core soldier. Other soldiers you control get +1/+1. That's sweet. don't know how many soldiers are in the set yet, but any anthem abilities are always good. Has an ability for 5 mana, 3 and 2 white. You exile this card from the graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on each soldier you control. Okay. Good consolation prize. So they remove this spell, and you can still, you know, with his Valiant Veteran's dying breath, he, you know, puts a counter on each of your creatures. It's good. I'd say it's a it's a build around. So I'd say build around B. Otherwise, it's just a bear, 2/2 bear, which is like a D. So B or D. Leyline Binding. 5 and a white for enchantment. Flash and domain. Costs 1 less to cast for each basic land type among lands you control. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. So let's say you're 2 color. This would be 4 mana to exile a non-land permanent. It's not great. If you're 3 color, then it's good. 4 color, you can get 4 colors in limited. It's very good. Yeah, it's not bad. I'd give it a C for removal. 4 and a white for Denitha, Benalia's Hope, a human knight, legendary, 4/4, with first strike, lifelink, and vigilance. That's an incredible combo right there. 5 mana for a 4/4. With those 3, it's already a B. So what else? When it enters the battlefield, you may put an aura or equipment card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield attached to it. Aura or equipment. So maybe there's a equipment archetype. That's pretty good. I think this is at least a B+, maybe an A-. Quite good. Next up, Anointed Peacemaker. 2 and a white for 3/3 with human cleric with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, look at an opponent's hand and choose any card name. So it doesn't have to be a card in their hand. It could be in their library or graveyard. You can name any card. Or it could be a banned card that isn't actually in play and has no business being named. Spells your opponents cast with the chosen name cost 2 more to cast. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name cost 2 more to activate, unless they're mana abilities. So this can take their best card out of the game. Oh, hey Apocalypse, how's it going? Where was I? So this is like best of 3. It's a very good card. Best of 1? Not so much. Although, hang on. If they have a card down with an activated ability on the battlefield, you can play this, see what's in their hand, and then just name the card on the battlefield, and whatever abilities it has will cost 2 more to cast, so that's not bad. For limited, best of 1, I'd say it's a C+. And for best of 3, it's probably a B-. So, Not bad. Temporary lockdown. 1 and 2 white. Enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less until temporary lockdown leaves the battlefield. So, what? Exile each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. So it's like a portable hole that hits everything with 2 or less mana value. That's kind of cool. I mean, it's pretty inefficient if it only gets one creature. But it's not just creatures, it's non-land permanents. I think portable hole is also non-land permanents. Alright, so I think this is a C in limited. Maybe a little higher, best of 3. If you know they have a lot of small creatures or spells. Defiler of Faith is next. 3 and 2 white for Phyrexian human with 5 power, 5 toughness, and vigilance. So 5 mana for 5/5 with vigilance. That's good, I think. So that's a C+ already. As an additional cost to cast white permanent spells, you may pay 2 life, and it reduces the cost by 1 white. Whenever you cast a white permanent spell, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. That's pretty good. To pay 2 life for 1 mana less could be quite relevant. I think this is a B-, maybe even a B. I mean, if you're heavy white, creating a 1/1 soldier creature to return after you play this is pretty good. Or multiple. Yeah. You can create multiple per turn. You have multiple white spells to play. It's not bad. B, B-. Archangel of Wrath. 2 and 2 white. 2 colorless, 2 white. For a 3/4 angel flying lifelink with a kicker. That's black or red kicker on a white spell. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, it deals 2 damage to any target. Okay. And if it was kicked twice, it deals 2 damage to any target. So it could deal 4 damage to any single target or 2 damage each to two targets. It was kicked twice. 4 mana, 3/4 flyer, 5 mana to deal 2 damage to something, 6 mana to deal 4 damage. That's pretty good, I think. I mean, removing one of their creatures and putting one of yours on the battlefield with lifelink and flying. Yeah, that's good. I'd say that's really good. Of course, you have to be either white and red or white and black, but I feel like in this set, they're going to make domain pretty easy to achieve. So you're probably going to, if you're playing this, you're probably going to be able to have all 3 colors. So I think this is a B. Maybe even B+. I think it's really good. It's like a removal spell plus a 3/4 flying lifelink, which is big. That's a big flying lifelinker. B+, I'd say. Guardian of Dominaria. 1 into white for a 2/2 human soldier with enlist. Enlist is when you go to combat. Wait, what is it? As this creature attacks, you may tap a non-attacking creature you control without summoning sickness. When you do, add its power to this creature's until end of turn. So you steal the power from the creature you tapped, add it to this dude. That's fine. Wait, it doesn't have any evasion. When it enlists a creature, scry 2. And it also has a second ability. That's a triggered ability. Second ability is an activated ability. Discard a card. Guardian of New Benalia gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. Okay. So it's a bear with enlist. If you enlist, it scries. Let's say you enlist a 2-power creature, it'll be a 4/2 attacking creature that scries 2. And it can gain indestructible if you discard a card. Yeah, I mean, that's decent. It's like that core berserker card. With the activated ability, you just have to pay mana to make it indestructible. Before blocks, though. But this, you can do it after blocks. You can decide whether to make it indestructible or not. That's pretty good, I think. Maybe C+. I've read about Enlist a little bit, and it doesn't sound all that amazing. Because it removes a blocker for your opponent's turn. And it only works on creatures without summoning sickness. So you have a creature with enlist on the battlefield and you play a second creature that turn, you can't use the enlist yet. You have to wait a whole another turn to use it, and then that second creature you played has been useless for 2 turns now if you use enlist on the next turn. Definitely not sold on enlist. But this is probably a C. Maybe C+. I don't know. We'll see. Prayer of Binding. 3 into white for an enchantment with flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. So you gain 2 life. So you can play this without any target. It just sits there doing nothing. But you gain 2 life. And it has flash. So it could save you in a fringe case. 4 mana is kind of expensive, but it's not bad considering you gain 2 life. And it's target non-land permanent, so it's not just creatures. Pretty good. Say C+ removal, maybe? Yeah. Love Song of Night and Day. This is one of those sagas with read ahead. First one is you and target opponent each draw 2 cards. Second is create a white bird creature token with flying. Third is put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So pretty simple. If there's some sort of enchantment or creature that punishes your opponent for drawing cards, then you'll want this together with that. Otherwise, it's like a net 0. First one, it's fine. This is 3 mana. You get a bird creature token and a +1/+1, 2 +1/+1 counters potentially. Meh. Okay. I think it's fine. Maybe C-. Although sagas are kind of hard to rate. It's an uncommon. I feel like this should be a common. If it were common, I could see it getting a lot of play in limited. Because you could just collect them and you'd have an army of birds and counters. But uncommon, not so much. I'd say C-, maybe C. Could be anywhere from C- to C+, I'm not sure. But my initial impression is it's not great. Knight of Dawn's Light is next, 1 and a white for a human knight creature with first strike. And it's a 2/2. If you would gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. So it's for life gain archetypes. And has the activated ability, 1 and a white. Knight of Dawn's Light gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And it looks like it's repeatable. So it's a bear that makes you gain more life if you have other things that let you gain life. And it has a repeatable +1/+1. Late game. That's not bad. That's pretty good, actually, I think. I mean, the second ability is for late game. Or, you know, if your opponent makes a mistake and forgets about the ability, you could instead of trading. Anyways, I think this is probably a C+. Yeah, Scotty thinks it's quite good. Maybe B- then. What's next? Phyrexian Missionary, 1 and a white for a human cleric. Phyrexian, 2/3 with lifelink. 2/3 lifelinker for 2 is pretty good already. And it has a kicker. 1 and a black. If it was kicked, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's Gravedigger. For 4 mana. What was Gravedigger? Where is Gravedigger here? Yeah, right there. So Gravedigger was 4 mana, 2/2. This is 4 mana, 2/3 to dig a grave. However, you do need the 2 colors, white and black. And it has a lifelink, so it's definitely better than Gravedigger, I think. Yeah, it's a good card. I think this is a B. Maybe even B+. Uncommon. You get a couple of these in your drafts. Then you're way ahead of the game already. That's a good card. B, B+. Cleaving Skyrider, 2 and a white. For a human warrior, 2/2 flying creature with flash. And a kicker. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Okay. Number of attacking creatures. Doesn't have to be your attacking creatures. Any attacking creatures. So you flash this in when you're on defense and your opponent's attacking. You could use their numbers against them for 6 mana. That's a lot. It's an expensive combat trick. But late in the game, I mean, I think you would hang on to this until later in the game unless you absolutely needed to play it. Because a 2/2 flyer for 3 is meh, kind of boring. But 6 mana for a 2/2 flyer that does some damage to your opponent's attacking creatures is pretty awesome. And I feel like that's when you would play this. That's when you would want to use the kicker ability during your opponent's turn. Because if you do it during your attack phase, this creature can't attack with your other creatures. It would have summoning sickness, and your creatures would be attacking anyway. You would have passed that step. So yeah, this is a defensive combat trick, basically. It's a pretty good one. I give it a... I'd say C+. Yeah. The stars kind of have to align to make this a really good combat trick. So, yeah, C+. Maybe even C. It's expensive. Runic Shot is next for 1 white with a blue kicker. Sorcery. Destroy target tapped creature. If it was kicked, scry 2. Destroy target tapped creature for 1 white. That is very efficient. Yeah, that's very good. I think that's very good removal. I'd say it's a B for removal. Yeah, it's pretty good. Wingmantle Chaplain, 3 and a white for a 0/3 human cleric creature with defender. And when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying for each creature with defender you control. So if this is the first card you play, you get 1 bird. I feel like there's a defender archetype in this set, which is kind of annoying. I mean, it could be annoying. It's a little scary to think about. Could you imagine going to a pre-release event and your opponent is playing the defender archetype? That game's going to last forever. That's going to be the only game you get to play. You better hope you win and go 1-0 for that round. Yeah. I think the defender archetype is going to make long games drawn out. Anyways. What would I give this rating? Oh wait, I didn't finish it. Whenever another creature with defender enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 bird creature token. That's cool. So it's like prorated birds. You don't have to play this first to utilize the birds. You can play it after you played some other defenders. Okay. 4 mana for an 0/3. And a 1, so it's 1/4 for 4 mana to start. It goes up from there. It's definitely build around. It's not worth it if this is your only defender. I think it's a build around C. Otherwise, it's a D, D-, something like that. Not really exciting unless you happen to find yourself drafting in the defender archetype. Coalition Sky Knight, 3 and a white for a human knight, 2/2 flying creature with enlist. Pretty simple. 4 mana for a 2/2 flyer with enlist. That's not good. I don't know. That's a D+, I think. Nah. Maybe enlist will be good. I don't know. It doesn't seem very good to me yet. Resolute Reinforcements, 1 and a white for a 1/1 human soldier creature with flash. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So it's 2/2 worth stats for 2 mana with flash. Yeah, it's a good defensive trick. That's not bad. I mean, there was a 4 mana instant in this Baldur's Gate set, which gets you 3 1/1s. This is very similar. Only 2 mana. I would give this a C+, I think. Maybe just a C. I think C+, just because you can use it when you're defending as a combat trick. Now, if there's a card somewhere that cares about 1/1s, then it gets an even higher grade. Alright, 2 and a white for Joined Forces. It's an instant untap up to 2 target creatures. They each get +2/+2 until end of turn. Okay. These ones, I don't know. These ones I've never really been able to use very much. Just because you need 2 creatures. Well, they don't need to be tapped. You just need more than 1 creature on the board to get to make this efficient. I'll give it a C. It's a combat trick. Probably not always going to want it. Shalai's Acolyte. 4 and a white. For a 3/4 angel flying with a kicker. 1 and a green. So 5 mana, 3/4 flyer. It's not great. But for 7 mana, if it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters on it. So 7 mana gets you a 5/6 flyer. I mean, it's no dragon. It's not very good. I don't think this is very good. Maybe a C. C minus even. It's just expensive. Yeah. Banalish Faithwander, 1 and a white for a human cleric creature. 1 power, 3 toughness with vigilance. And it has enlist. And that's it. Vigilance, 1/3 enlist. That's actually not bad. I think that's a good way to use enlist. Because it has the defense, the higher toughness than power already. So when you use enlist, you're not just throwing it away. But you're still tapping down a creature that doesn't have summoning sickness to use it, so. C minus. I don't know. I don't know about enlist yet. I don't think it's very good. Captain's Call, 3 and a white. Create 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. At sorcery speed. That's crappy. It is a common. Alright, so there must be something that cares about tokens and, like, going wide in white. Because this is not a good spell. There was a 4 mana, create 3 soldier creature tokens at instant speed with the alternate ability of tapping down 3 of your opponent's creatures in this last set. It was uncommon, but this is much worse than that. This is a D. It's a D, unless there's an archetype that can use those tokens. What was that? Clockwork Drawbridge, 1 white for a 0/3 artifact creature wall with defender. And the ability 2 and a white, tap this creature, tap target creature. 2 and a white, tap target creature. It's a drawbridge. Okay. It's only 1 white mana. And it's not doing any attacking, so that's actually not a bad ability for just 1 white mana to use later in the game, you know? Tap down their most powerful defender. Anyways, I think it's a C+, actually. Regardless of the defender status. I think that's not a bad ability. Keeps you alive in the early game, too. It's good. C+. Destroy evil. 1 and a white for an instant. Choose 1. Destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater, or destroy target enchantment. We've seen a bunch of enchantments already, and sagas count in that group. That's actually a really good removal. 2 mana, destroy creature with toughness 4 or greater. In Baldur's Gate, there was a 3 mana, destroy creature with toughness 4 or greater, scry 2. But this is just as flexible. Destroy target enchantment will be... That's gonna matter. I think there's gonna be a lot of enchantments in this set. This is good removal. I'd say B-. Heroic Charge. 2 colorless, 2 white for an instant with a kicker, 1 and a red. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. If the spell is kicked, those creatures also gain trample. So 4 mana +2/+1, that's not good. For 6 mana +2/+1 in trample, that's his finisher. And that is good. If you're wide enough in red and white, that'll end the game pretty quickly. I think it's C+. Maybe. I think it's a decent finisher, especially at common. This is going to be you need to draft finishers. I've learned that recently. You need to draft finishers that can end the game in your favor. And this is a pretty cheap way to get one. I'm cheap as in there will be plenty of these in a draft or sealed pack for you to add if necessary, if you need an extra finisher. So C+. I think that's decent. 2 white and 1 red is a little prohibitive though. So maybe just C. Artillery Blast, 1 and a white for an instant with domain. Deals X damage to target tapped creature where X is the domain. Oh, where X is 1 plus the number of land types among lands you control. So 2 mana, 2 damage for one land. You have 2 different color lands. It's 3 damage for 2 mana. So it's like a more expensive lightning bolt. Could go all the way up to 6 damage for 2 mana, which is super efficient and an excellent removal. I think domain's going to be easier than we think it would be in this set. So I think this is pretty good removal. I think it's going to be B-. B- unless you're a domain archetype and you can actually get the 5 colors, then this is an A. Definitely. Build around A. Otherwise B-, so it's always going to be drafted highly, no matter what. Argivian Phalanx. How come there's no text here? Is this new? Anyways. 5 and a white for a human soldier creature. And it costs 1 less to cast for each creature you control. Okay, so this is a Tokens Matter card. So you play that 4 mana for 3 1/1 tokens. This now costs math 3 mana for a 4/4 with vigilance. That's good. So this would definitely go into that archetype, the go wide white tokens archetype. You could play a 4/4 vigilance for 1 mana, probably on turn 3. Maybe. Turn 4. Conservatively. It's a good card. I think it's a B. No, maybe not a B. I'd say C plus, B minus. That's good. Griffin Protector, 3 and a white with 2/3 flyer. Griffin. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Griffin Protector gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So for 4 mana, it's effectively a 3/4 whenever it can attack. Assuming you play your creatures in the first main phase. So 3/4 for flyer. It's okay. I think 10 years ago this would have been a B plus. Now it's probably C plus or C even. Maybe just C. I think C plus is good. I think that's where it'll end up. Juniper Order Root Weaver. 1 and a white for a 2/2 human druid with a kicker of green. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So for 2 mana, you get a bear. That does nothing else. For 3 mana, you get a bear that puts a +1/+1 counter on either this creature or any other creature you have. So throw that +1/+1 on a flyer, and this is, you know, there was a card like this a couple sets ago in Streets of New Capenna that turned out to be quite good. I think it was 2 mana for 1/1, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. This is 2 mana for a 2/2, 3 mana for a 2/2. So it's the same thing, basically, except it's 2 colors. Whereas the Streets of New Capenna one was only white. So this is probably gonna end up being a C plus. Done. Argivian Cavalier. 2 and a white for a 2/2 Orc Knight with Enlist. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So 3 mana for 3/3 worth stats. And this has Enlist. This is fine. This is like mediocre. This is C minus, I'd say. Yeah. Not in love with that one. Citizen's Arrest. 1 and 2 white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. Wasn't there another one just like this? Yeah, Rare Binding with Flash. Target non-land permanent, so that covers creature or planeswalker. And it also gives you 2 life. That's uncommon. This is common. So they're both going to be useful removal. Obviously the uncommon is better, but this is good, still good. It's a C plus removal. You're always going to want more removal. Next up, Samite Herbalist. 1 and a white for a 2/1 human cleric. When it becomes tapped, you gain 1 life and scry 1. So you attack, it taps, you gain a life and scry. I think there's probably some other creature or artifact that allows you to tap creatures. Oh, Enlist. This is a perfect Enlist target. Yeah, 2 power. Add that to your power of your Enlist creature. You also gain a life and scry 1. So this goes right into the Enlist archetype. But if it's not in that archetype, so it's a build around C plus, otherwise it's D plus, I'd say, if you're not in the Enlist archetype. Next up, Mesa Cavalier, 2 and a white for a 2/1 human knight flying creature. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. So 3 mana, 2/1 flyer. Gain 2 life. C minus, D plus, something like that. Unexciting, nonetheless. Next up, Stalker time. 2 and a white for an instant with a 1 and a blue kicker. Tap up to 2 target creatures. If the spell was kicked, put a stun counter on each of those creatures. So they're tapped down for 2 turns. They don't untap during your opponent's turn, is what that means. Yeah, you remove a stun counter instead of oh, and you draw a card. Didn't notice that. So 3 mana, tap a creature, draw a card. 5 mana, tap a creature for 2 turns and draw a card. 5 mana, that seems like a lot. Yeah, that's why it's a common. I don't think this is that great. It'll work in some decks. I give it a D plus. I could be wrong though. These guys like it. Pick up the shield, 1 and a white for an instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains lifelink and indestructible until end of turn. So the counter stays, it's indestructible, and it gets lifelink. It's an excellent battle trick. Excellent. Will you want more than 2 of these in your deck? Probably not. But it's not bad. For a combat trick, I'd say it's a C+. C+, yeah. Yeah, let's go with C+. Maybe even B- because it leaves a counter. But I don't know. We'll see. Banalish Sleeper, 1 and a white. For a 3/1 human soldier, Phyrexian creature. With a kicker of black. When Banalish Sleeper enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, each player sacrifices a creature. So for 3 mana, you get a 3/1, and you get a 3/1 Chain Devil. Chain Devil was 4/2 for 4 mana. Each player sacrifices a creature. Okay. This is better than a Chain Devil, I think. Because it's less... Sometimes you would use a Chain Devil just, you know, as the only creature on board. You would just play it, stack it, and destroy whatever fatty your opponent has. This is a cheaper way to do that. Otherwise, it's 2 mana, 3/1. That does nothing else. It's probably a C. Yeah, probably a C. Probably just a C. It's fine. You can play it if you want. Charismatic Vanguard. 2 and a white for a 3/2 dwarf soldier creature with the ability 4 and a white. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So it's the unicorn. Steadfast unicorn. That dude. So we get 3/2 for 2 extra colorless mana. I don't think it's better than the unicorn. But it'll see play. That ability is good. I mean, the unicorn proved it. They nerfed it because it was too good at 4 mana. So they raised it to 5 mana. So this guy is probably C+. Yeah, C+. And that's it for white. Next up is blue.